Welcome to the future of payroll and workforce management insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com, where I am executive community leader and handle a few other things as well. And my guest today is Jenny Lee. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you are a manager of global integrations at UKG, it's a new role for you, and you have been involved in payroll technology implementations for a long time, and that's really exciting. And we're going to be talking about some really interesting ideas around that and just the payroll profession in general later in the podcast. But first, I just wanted to ask you, as I ask all my guests, what drives you? What gets you up in the morning, fires you up, galvanizes you, keeps you going day to day when it comes to the world of work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely think, especially being in the space that I've been for a really long time, every day is different. Um, every day there could be a new challenge or a new regulation that is being proposed that, I come in the morning and I read an article and then, right away my brain is, oh, how is this going to impact, this part of the employee life cycle, or how is this going to impact my teams, or how can I prepare my teams to educate, and all the million questions that go through payroll people's heads when we read those types of articles. So I mean, we have routine, we have process, but just in general, um, every day brings something different. So it's I don't find it boring. So that's yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely. There's never a dull moment in HCM. It's a fascinating space to observe, which is what I have done from many perspectives over the course of my career. And one of the things we want to drill down into payroll today, because payroll is a particularly interesting, it's unique, it's really where the rubber meets the road. Most people, they want other things out of their work, but most people don't have the luxury to work without getting a paycheck. And so that's basically the main reason that many the majority of people are working. We're not necessarily the Vanderbilts over here, right? So um and that's what makes payroll so important. And it takes a certain kind of person to do it. What do you think it really takes to be successful in payroll?
Another good question. I think it's a little bit of a loaded question. Payroll is so vast. Um, and it's not just one person that brings success. Um, so, it just having the want to learn payroll and not just payroll, like not, I know I see it on LinkedIn every day. We're, throwing around the buzz phrase of it's not just a click of a button. Because it's not. Having that curiosity in payroll itself and the employee life cycle and all the ins and outs and the different WFM, right, is a big piece of that. Um, Everybody kind of falls into their own niche, and using all of your sources to be successful when running an end-to-end payroll. And even if it's just you, right, and you're a one-person show and you've got your employees, you're doing it for a reason. And that reason really is because you're intrigued and you're curious, and you might like owning the process from beginning to end and knowing everything in WFM and how that data gets into payroll, and then my garnishments and all the rule, doing all of those checks and balances before we're issuing payment to employees. Um, it really, I think it comes from within, honestly. I think there's a lot of passion, um, with so many things, especially when it comes to owning, you know, that final moment of hitting the button and letting it rip and, you know, can't take it back at this point. So if something does occur, after the fact, then, and we're also, very process oriented. We have process for that. Um, and we'll also need to be strong communicators, not just to the employee level as they're impacted the most, but communication throughout organization, your third party partners, your staff, if you have staff, things like that. So
Do you think that communication can be sort of a challenge, maybe for some payroll people? Like, does it take a special kind of person to be good at the payroll, like the processing of the payroll? And do they maybe need to cut, like, what do they need? What would a typical payroll person possibly need to work on? And what kind of persons does it take?
yeah, so I would say with that is because I don't ever want to rule out there are many, many people out there that are a one person show. Um, And so, like somebody like myself, I was a one person show. And in my journey, I found a love for more of the process and the technology versus communicating to stakeholders. So, kind of deviated from, um, the one person show and I went into my niche of educating, um, service delivery teams, being part, still, but I was still owning the process of ultimately getting to the point of where we're processing payroll and we're making it happen, with all the bumps in the road, like all the things that we have to do throughout the year that might impact the payroll, whether it's minimum wage increase or IRS changes. At the end of the day, you still have your payroll runs that still have to be complete in respect to those things that come in the road. So communication is a big driver, and I would say there's been so many in my years of doing this, all the different job opportunities from HRIS analyst. So if you don't want to be the person in the boardroom meeting or having to communicate to employees and you just, want to be the person doing the data, doing the metrics, supporting, that's a great opportunity for you. The payroll manager space where we have the payroll manager and the director. And I know there's talk going around of the what was the oh my God, now I can't remember the terminology, like chief officer of payroll, I think is the terminology. I think
Right.
Chime just did a podcast on it. It was great. Um, this corporate ladder that we're going up. You want to start as a payroll manager and then go to a director, and those are very all heavy communication based. Um, and it doesn't have, it's like I said, it's so big now. You don't have to, if that's not your communication's not your strong suit or you don't like it, you don't have to be a payroll manager. You could be an analyst. You could go work for, a service bureau and get more into the tech side. There's just such opportunity now. With the softwares alone, and you can still love payroll, and you don't have to be in that management heavy communication throughout organization type roles.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like marketing, there's field marketing roles, there are product marketing roles, there, you know, also it runs again. There's like an ecosystem of like a spectrum of different types of roles that you can get into in payroll. Um, and I think this is a good segue, I think, because I know we want to talk about how, in the past and even today, and definitely today, the vast majority of people who are in payroll, they what we like to say is that what we say sometimes is that they fell into it. I fell into my career. Why is that? What what was your story? Can you share with us your story? Because I know in the green room, or in our previous conversation, I remember that you said you kind of fell into payroll and then you realized you liked it so much. But what happened to you, and why do you think so many people just kind of fall into it as opposed to saying, "Hey, payroll, I want to be in payroll when I grow up"?
Yeah. Um, so I would imagine my story is probably pretty, people can resonate with it. So I started, it was a small company. It was a manufacturing company. It was like 300 employees. And the original job posting was for an office manager. And so that included purchase orders for buying materials to do the things in manufacturing. It was owning of payroll and timesheets and all of those things, and then general ledger and some basic accounting. And it was this very generic role. And I did not have any payroll experience. And to find out as I was learning, and I kind of had to self teach myself with the aid of the payroll vendor that they were using at the time. Started teaching myself and then quickly realized like, oh wow, like it took up the majority of my time outside of my other job duties. So then like, the time management piece became a thing. And like just said, like quickly learned like it took quite a bit of time. Um, but the time piece of it was I-9 verification, which I learned how to do, which is not really normal of the payroll process. So then you started to learn like, oh, well, this is kind of human resources, and then all the compliance pieces, and then going through my first minimum wage increase many, many years ago in the state of Illinois. And there was no mass update then either. So I had to hand key and make sure they were all done. And, you couldn't do it early because the effective dating wasn't really much of a concept then. Um, and and then I switched payroll vendors while I was there. The company was trying to save money. The owners kind of wanted to have more to do with it, and ADP was a little bit more complex software than they wanted to do. So we switched payroll vendors, and I did the entire implementation, the WFM, the installing of the time clocks. I was in a server room, like the whole kit and caboodle, all the way down to the payroll application. And I was going to school at the time for technology, and I was like, the software thing is amazing. And I ended up changing my major from information technology uh, to engineering, basically database. Well, it was database
Wow.
administration back then, so I'm not a software engineer. Um, and those who know me know that very well. So that is not who I am. But going through that process, and definitely the purchase of that next set of payroll WFM software, and it just opened a whole new world. And I was like, okay, I like this. It was fast paced, it was complicated, it was constantly changing. Um, and like I said, I've made my journey. Um, I did work for like an employer services company for a while, and I did work for another benefits company. It is still involved with payroll. It's just not at the same level as, being knees deep in the payroll WFM world. And I've circled back to going to UKG, kind of going back to my roots. Um, and I love it. And that's how
That
I fell into it. So I'm sure a lot of people have, even business owners, right? You're an entrepreneur. Maybe you didn't want to keep your business anymore. And, you know, it, I think we all start from this very small place and we realize how big it really is. And we flourish, and we get into our little areas of the world, the payroll world there.
Well, you know what's interesting to me, and that's a great story. I really love your story, and there's probably there's probably myriad permutations of that story in the payroll space with people that just ended up in payroll and they realized that they liked it, or they found it interesting, or whatever, right? Um, it's interesting though that the most important piece of employing people does not have there is no there's no, let's say, college degree program for payroll, or I mean, it's not, that's not unique to payroll, but within the scope of this conversation, right? There's no path. There's nothing. If you, in the rare instance, I would say it's probably a rare instance. In the rare instance that somebody that's maybe graduating from high school says, I want to go into payroll. Maybe their parents were in payroll. Maybe they found that interesting, or any sort of reason. There's no there's no readily apparent path to take. Like you would,
Right.
you know, yeah,
There's not outside of accounting, right? Like I think accounting would give you your very first flavor of it in payroll accounting. And then really like people that are in accounting sometimes go, I want to be a tax lawyer. I want to be a tax attorney or something, right? Like I'm going to get my CPP or my CPA. And then they realize, ooh, I want to go further. And I think in that workflow from a college perspective, you are very much, you're introduced to payroll because of all the tax, the Illinois tax, the federal taxes, um, because you're owning that, right? Like there's employment lawyers and all those things. From a generic perspective, like, running a payroll department, um, there is no, it's not really highlighted anywhere. So we have SHRM and we have, the CPP and the chapters that own in each state. It would be great to start to see them at like high school
yeah.
job fairs just to get the education out there. I mean, right. Or, working with colleges for perhaps some type of specialized degree versus, I mean, you could do lots of things, right? You have a 4 year in anything, and then you can still go get your CPP. Nothing stops anybody from getting their CPP or SHRM certification. But just, getting it out there. Yeah.
It's interesting. Everything, I agree 100% with everything that you're saying. It's some sort of a well-defined degree related to this, or some way that communicates that, hey, if you're looking to get into deeper into accounting or whatever, here's some other career paths that you having to do with payroll that might be interesting to you as well, like being a little bit more um, uh, uh, a little bit more transparency there when it comes to presenting that to young folks coming up. And in my opinion, and you probably agree, this codifying this, or corralling, marshaling this into some sort of a degree program, being one piece of the puzzle here. Uh, it's one of many ways for payroll professionals to position themselves as strategic assets in organizational decision making, which we hear all the time. Payroll will finally become a strategic asset to organizational leadership and all this kind of stuff. What are some of the other things in addition to establishing payroll as a true as a profession with all the all the kit that entails, having like the career path and all of this, excuse me, the degree paths and all that. What are some other ways the payroll professionals can position themselves in this way to be strategic to the organization?
Sure. That's a also a really great question because payroll people hold so much information. We are like this, we just have, I don't want to say we just have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things within the organization, right? Like your benefits, even all the way down to like your IT and your onboarding processes, right? Because most times Active Directory is supported by an HRIS or a payroll application that feeds into IT, and then they ship you your computer when you're a new hire and all that. So the team itself and a payroll manager themselves have so much knowledge within so many different areas of the organization. Um, you know, a lot of it comes back to that communication piece. What data do we have to have the right conversation with each organization? Um, and then in turn, vice versa, most payroll people are very inundated with requests from lots of different places of the organization, and we're always in the position to prioritize the ask, doing what we need to do to stay compliant, keep our costs low as a payroll team, um, but still being able to support others. So it's really just, maybe having a proactive approach to, like, if you get this question 3 times a month from a certain team, how about I just give you a report, or I can put it out here, or, our software is very fancy now. We can give them a security role and just run, they can go in there and have access to that one report, and they can be self-sufficient. So, you know, kind of using those kind of mechanisms to keep communication within the different teams within any organization, because we are an asset. It is. So,
Yeah, yeah, you are an asset. You're right, and being proactive about it. I like the compliance piece of it that you brought up as well as all the rest. But that compliance piece really resonated with me just now, because there's a way to be to approach compliance with intention, right? You can be vocal about it to organizational leadership, and you can, because risk mitigation is a big interest in the C-suite. That's one of the top three that they want to kind of keep under control, or to make sure that that risk mitigation is, that they're mitigating as much risk as possible. And there's a lot of it in payroll because there's a lot of money involved in payroll, right? Um, yeah, yeah, that absolutely. Uh, anything else you'd like to share? What we've talked about sort of made you think of.
yeah, it's just, I've been doing this a really long time, and, I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people at payroll companies, and, you know, and I've had employees tell me payroll's not for me. I'm like, well, there's so many different aspects to it, like, like retirement. There's all these different benefits, right? Medical, dental, um, trying to get them in like different areas. Like, okay, well, I get you don't like the processing, the check part, but there's all these other things. And I've had people tell me, like, this overall, this industry is just not for me. And that's okay. I
Is
mean,
it for everybody?
I've coached people that went like software engineer route and didn't even stay within the payroll organization. They left and did, whatever, something else, something that they were passionate about that clearly was not payroll, and that's okay. Um, I've had employees work for me that ended up getting their PMP, and, going to an organization where it was definitely much bigger scope, right? And it was not payroll based, even though it was in there, but, we're implementing a project that was software, hardware, all different softwares, right? Like payroll and point of sale and accounting systems. And they went and were project managers at different technology firms. Um, but they all learned so much on their journey within payroll. That took them into different sectors and to be very successful. So it's okay if you don't like it. But I will always be here to try and make you like it because I love it. So, you know,
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a great fine point to put on it. Let's that's a great way to end this podcast episode. If you don't have to like payroll, but if you do, that's cool. And we hope that we shared some ideas with you that helped. Um, Jenny, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. This was a really refreshing and very interesting conversation.
Yes, no, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.